No mucking around. Straight into it. Good?
Yeah, it seems alright.
Good.
I'm not saying anything.
Well, you don't always start
I'm
with
just
you saying
saying,
something stupid,
I know.
Which, maybe we'll do that off camera. All right. We're in Vegas, in a hotel in Vegas. And we'd show you the view, but it's all bright and just shiny. And how are you going with the sun? Because you don't do real well with sun.
Yeah, it's like 43 point something today at the high centigrade. I don't know what that is.
So my watch says it's 41 now, actually, which is...
it's about 25 hotter than it needs to be.
In fairness, just to qualify, why we're drinking beers as well, it is, nearly 7 p.m. So,
yeah, we'll just tell them that.
We've done well. So you know what? This is the sort of thing where someone will literally go and triangulate the light, and they'll figure it out, and they go, yeah, okay, that was reasonable.
The shadow angle from my arm or something. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you fake it, someone will let you know. So this is my third visit to Vegas, but my first visit to B-Sides Black Hat DEF CON. I mean, we'll still be here in a week, and I think it'll be really fun to do this again in a week. And so we'll talk about
when
what
we
it's
look
like.
dreadful and run down and...
See, this is what I hear, but I don't quite know how these things go with this event. So how many times have you been here before?
This has been my fourth.
All right, cool. So what should I expect? What's the event about?
The weird thing is, it's so hard to answer because the conferences could be anything. Like the experience that you could have, especially at an event as large as like DEF CON, it could be completely unique. So you could just go do like talk tracks and sit in talks and have like the proper, like formal conference experience. The villages are so big that I know people that literally just spend the entire conference in the villages and don't go to a single talk. Then there's people that just do like the challenges or just come for the parties or the networking. There's so many different ways that you can do DEF CON and all the others. Yeah. It's actually largely dependent on how you want to play it, really.
I mean, we go to a lot of events around the world, and some of them are quite large, but what sort of numbers do you normally see here?
So DEF CON the other year, I think their biggest year was like a year or two ago, from going off memory here, but it's like 34,000 people or something.
Like tens of thousands?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay. All right.
Let's have a
look.
look.
You lots of stickers.
Let's have a look. I want to just double check that actually, but I'm pretty sure it was in the tens. Could be totally wrong. DEF CON attendance numbers. Here we go. Google will tell us. Any idea what the official DEF CON attendance number was? Go. Around about 26,000.
Oh wait.
But when was that?
Holy
that was
cow.
August 2018.
So I mean, we do things like
they printed 28,000 badges and ran out. So actually, we don't know.
What days are DEF CON?
Thursday through Sunday again.
All right. Okay. Cool. Because I'm going to head out Saturday night. But all right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you won't miss much on Sunday. That's okay.
Okay. So that will be interesting. So let's do that next week. So I've got two other things I thought we'd do this week. I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing with Project Svalbard, and to be fair as well, you and I basically both just got here, so you haven't heard anything about any of this.
Literally,
we're going to
landed and unpacked.
We're definitely going to talk a lot more offline. And then I really want to talk about some of your discussions online this week, which I have found rather hilarious. So I think we should.
I've just seen a glimpse of.
I got the laptop ready here. So I spent all of last week and most of this week in San Francisco, and effectively it's just been like meeting with all sorts of different companies that might be interested in finding your home for Halloween Pwn. And it's, I've obviously got to be a little bit cautious about how much I say, at least on camera, during this process, because I'm sure a lot of them end up watching this. I know a lot of them end up watching it because they've said when I've met them, we watched this. So, all right, thank you, I'll keep that in mind. It's been really, really fascinating to see things like how a bunch of organizations are using the service already. So it's really... You know what it's like as well. I mean, you must have felt this with Report Your Array, where you sit at home and you build something and you put it out there and you go, maybe some people find it useful. And you have traffic and you have Twitters and things like this, but it's always different to come face to face with someone and then see their product and see what they've built on it.
Well, that happened when we were at InfoSec. One of our customers walked up and they were like, "Hey, it's really awesome to meet you."
I remember that. Yeah,
it. And I was
there's
just like,
a bunch of people, wasn't it?
Thanks. This is so in a really good way, but it's super weird because it's like, wow, this thing that I built is actually.
So if you're one of the 28,000 people at DEF CON this week, Scott needs some love. Let him know. But it is really interesting, and it's just really curious to actually see very often the passion in people who built things on your product as well, and that it's nice getting tweets and things like this, but it's never quite the same, is it?
Yeah, it is. It is nice. It's very nice. I guess don't know how to process that.
Yeah,
it's like a weird emotion.
Yeah,
and I don't know quite know what to do with it sometimes.
So there was that. I gave out a lot of stickers. Here's the fun thing, and again, we haven't even spoken about this because we haven't seen each other for a few weeks, but there are so many organisations where it'll be like people in suits, and then I'm like, hey, here's some stickers, and they're like, oh my god, stickers! Look, I'm so happy to get the stickers. Which is
everyone loves stickers.
Cool.
I don't care what anyone
everyone
says.
loves stickers.
Everybody loves stickers.
One of the I had one funny conversation during the week where I said to someone, look, I've never done any marketing or anything like this for Have I Been Pwned? Like everything's just organic, like people hear about it, it's on the news, whatever. And then here's some stickers, and they're like, so you have done some marketing. So, yeah, actually, now that I think
it's
of it,
weird, right?
I have actually spent thousands of dollars on stickers.
On stickers?
Thousands of dollars
Wow.
on stickers. So those donations are going somewhere. Thank you for that. But yeah, stickers are just it's a weird thing. They're just invaluable. And of course, I still make sure people don't stick them on the coral or anything like that as well.
Or sharks now. Sharks.
So Scott and I did this talk. We've done it several times. Last time we did it was in Oslo. Jeez, was it last month? The month before?
They don't mean anything to me anymore.
This year.
Sometime.
NDC Oslo this year. And it's the Cyber Broken talk we've spoken about in this video before. And we sort of showed the way some people just lose their minds on the internet. And after I showed that I'd just bought like 10,000 stickers, I think that was the one that cost me like $1,000 for 10,000 stickers or something like that. We're going to hit comments now. People are going,
yeah, I was just literally playing it back through my head there. Like,
there's no way to censor that comments. And I tweeted it, and there's all these positive replies like, awesome, I'd really love stickers. And then there are a couple of people, one in particular was like, I'm really sorry to see that you're like killing the Great Barrier Reef for my children. And I'm like, I'm not sticking them on the shark. When we did the Cyber Break,
when we go scuba diving, and
we're like, no, don't stick them on the fish or the coral when you go there. So someone tweeted us during the week, and they'd like photoshopped an image of the Scott Helm sticker, the infamous Scott Helm sticker. Now, I'm not saying I didn't bring any with me on this trip.
Oh, no.
Anyway, he'd photoshopped that on
They
the
follow
shark.
me around. Like I've genuinely been places that I've had no prior connection with, walked into an office in Trondheim in Norway, which is like super out of the way, and I'm like, why the fuck is there a sticker on the fridge with my face on it? Like, what? I don't understand how this happened anymore. I give up.
Now I think I need to change the rating of the video. Thanks, man. Anyway.
Oh, sorry, I just swatted. I'm jet lagged, so we'll just blame it on the jet lag.
So anyway, yeah, look, I've been doing the sticker thing, and just hearing really, really interesting things about the way companies would like to use the service and the thing that, like, the visions they have. But one of the really interesting, unexpected things is it's materialized a lot more in my mind about what the service does really well and where a lot of the potential is. And I've got a gazillion ideas about things that I'd really, really love to do in the future. So I think there's going to be some really interesting weekly updates to come in the remaining months. And I'm going to start running some of these by you privately because for the most part, we're not doing the spa bath video. So he says later on,
that needs context now because that was a conversation outside of this video and no one will get.
I'm here in this hotel room and Scott's like, that's a nice spa bath there. And I think you said we should do a video together.
No, hang on. There's like 3 things wrong in there, and it was all of the things
So
that
anyway.
you said. Like, that's
Honestly, this is like
Jesus.
this is like my first. I think I had my first beer. I don't know. I lose track.
my first jet
I'm
lag
tired
beer.
as well. But, so anyway, there are lots of really, really interesting ideas, and I'll run some of those by you later on as well. Because one of the hard things, and again, I know that you went through this with Report Your Eye, other than the times that you and I got to chat together, where you basically sit there in a vacuum trying to figure out what makes sense.
Yeah.
And you sort of do your best, you put it out there, you're an individual and you're doing everything from registering domains to, in my case, removing the control characters out of password fields and data breaches through to all the really
cleaning,
cool high-end
like
stuff.
literally the other end.
To all the extreme stuff. So yeah, it's hard to sort of sit there and make these decisions in isolation. Having the experience I've had over the last couple of weeks in San Fran, where I get to just put all the mechanical stuff aside and just talk more about sort of strategic direction and opportunities and things like this, yeah, it's just amazing the stuff that bubbles up. And I think, and maybe this is a good lesson for you as well, but we both got to kind of take a bit more time out sometimes to go, look, let's just take, even a week where you just turn off all the things to the fullest extent possible. Step back and just go, look, what is the potential? Am I on the right track? Am I doing the right things?
It's hard as well though, because I struggle balancing my desires of the feature list versus what we can actually deliver. So
we talk about this with Report Your Right the whole time. It's like, should we build more things, or should we be marketing? And you and I guess
so we have
builders,
resources of the company, and you and I are builders, and Michael's a builder, and it's like you inevitably lean more towards building but that's why we started though, right? It's like, I want to build cool stuff. I want to make the thing do things, not do
you want to have a marketer there?
Do we want to have an income? The company has to make money, otherwise we don't get paid, and then it doesn't exist. And it's like
it's an interesting challenge. I mean, I've realised it's a bit of first world problems kind of thing as well, but it is something that creates a lot of turmoil. I can see the way people, including both you and I think at times, should just literally just go round and round and round and round in your head. It's like, am I doing the right thing? Should I do that? Am I doing the right thing? Should I do that? And you just it's like on loop, isn't it? Anyway, so I just actually remembered that I just remembered I actually wrote a blog post this week, albeit it's just been crazy. I've actually I've got a massive list of things I really want to finish writing.
It's like draft.
I know. I'm sure yours is the same. The blog post from this week was that the Irish government is now on Have I Been Pwned, which is super, super cool, which basically means that the Irish government, like the UK, Australia, Spain, Austria, so there's now the fifth government to come on board, has full access to the, I think it's .gov.ie TLD, as well as a whitelisted set of other domains, which are specifically Irish government domains, just on different TLDs. So they get to query those, freely accessible for them. They can query away as much as they want, and they get push notifications and all sorts of other stuff. And this is the Irish National Cybersecurity, National Cybersecurity Centre. Yeah. We're both tired. Irish government, who does the cyber?
The important people.
So it's really good to have them on board. There's a bunch of others in the wings as well. One of the interesting things with governments is that the mechanics of sort of getting access to data and have it been pwned is not the problem. It's when I want transparency and I want to make sure that. Because what I don't want is I want someone to turn around one day and go, oh, Troy's giving like a government like a back door or something. It's like, no, it's only to your domain.
People can misrepresent stuff on Twitter.
Oh no, jeez. So the transparency is sometimes the barrier, but I'm sort of going, look, I'm going to give you something really useful for free, and I don't want to get slandered on Twitter for giving governments things. Like, I want you to acknowledge the use of it. So that's something I'm working through. For many of these governments as well, and in fact some of the ones I'm talking to at the moment, they come out of face-to-face meetings as well, which is really cool. And I know you get to chat with a bunch of government people, including people such as the NCSC in your hometown. And the interesting thing is, I find with government, and I think you're going to agree with me, but I'm going to ask your opinion anyway. Every time I meet people in government, they're always just super, super, super nice. Like, they are the honest, fair income, nicest people, and they're in government usually because they have a passion to make a difference for, not just like one company with a commercial objective, but for an entire nation. And they're often doing it for a lot less money than what they'd get if they went out in the private sector as well.
And with a lot more constraints.
With a lot more constraint, but the level of professionalism is always super high, super nice people, and it's just really nice to go and have, a beer with those people or a good chat and see what they do.
Yeah, it is good. I've spent a little bit of time with NCSC down in London, especially the whole crypto jacking thing, and I'm doing some other bits with them. So yeah, just like emailing back and forth with them, and they're all just like really nice people. Yeah, it's nice to, they're in like a government department, and maybe you could have like formal titles and emails, and it's just like, just drop me an email, call me by my nickname, and it sounds like completely unrelated stuff, but it's just cutting away all the BS and being like, let's just talk about the cyber. It's the important bit.
The thing I lament is I think that there's often a public perception that government is out there to get you because we've had such negative incidents, like a bunch of the stuff that's come out of the Snowden leaks. And there's been some really, really shitty stuff that has come out of government. That I guess the very objective view of it is that when the shitty stuff does happen, it gets a spotlight shone on it. But when a lot of the really positive, good work happens, it's never seen, right? Like it's always behind the curtains. So I think we have sort of a skewed view of the good versus the bad, and that's not to downplay some of the bad stuff, because there's been some egregious government overreach, and probably in both our countries and the one we're in at the moment. Let's be honest. But for the most part, well, we got in. Nothing ever bad happens to security people that come to Vegas and then try to get out. Speaking of which, it looks like you'll be able to get out. Which is,
that's interesting, actually. It's,
anyway, tangential. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Okay, change subject. Let's move on to something less controversial. You having a public fight with Sectigo. All right, now, let's do this like Cyberbroken, which is the talk Scott and I do together at some of the NDC events, where I basically read stuff out and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And you just lose your shit trying to explain what it was. So 3 days ago, maybe 4 days ago, July 30.
Depending on where you are.
There's you, and this thread begins with you linking to a Sectigo website. Now, Sectigo was previously Comodo CA, previously Comodo. The title of this is New Research on EV SSL Security from Georgia Tech. EV domains, I'm going to have to open this up.
Don't do it. No, you click the link. Never.
You just know where it's going. EV domains 99.99% free of online crime. Now, this headline to begin with just feels terrible. All right, just focus on the headline. Why is the headline bad? Because when you linked to this, the tweet that you made alongside it was "throws self off roof." Just the headline.
I mean, first of all, there's two kind of things going on here. Number one, it's a certificate authority that is coming into a world where, obviously their core product of EV certificates is coming heavily under fire and heavily under scrutiny, and then they're pumping out things like this, which are very snazzy headlines, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, EV certificates 99.99% free of online crime, and it's like, right, great. What about all the other websites? Like, what, where's the context? What's the balance? It's just so, you can tell from the headline, it's just so narrowly focused on the bits that suit them, and it just
because
kind of irks me.
So I guess the unspoken thing here, and we've gone through this many times before, is that the basic premise, and we'll scroll back even further. My belief, and tell me if you disagree, is that because we've had the likes of Let's Encrypt and the Norwegian one, what's the Norwegian one again?
Bypass.
Bypass, right. So Bypass, let's be clear, this is not just go and get your Let's Encrypt things. Bypass in Norway as well, who implements ACME, and they have short-lived certs as well too. Yeah, it's the same sort of model, short-lived certs, ACME protocol. Beautiful, free and easily accessible crypto for everyone. Everyone should be happy, unless you're selling non-free crypto, which is not easily accessible to everyone. So that the macro observation here, I think, is that commercial CAs have been under pressure because so much of this is available for free. So they've had to find points of differentiation. And the thing that you and I have been lamenting is that organisations, particularly Comodo, who then became Comodo CA, who then became Sectigo. Why do they keep changing?
Because Comodo CA wasn't far enough from Comodo. So it went.
Wouldn't they have realised that before they thought about it?
Do I look like a CA?
Not with that t-shirt on, no, you don't.
I got my DEFCON t-shirt from last year.
So the premise has been that there's been all these kind of screwy kind of studies where they've gone, we're going to look at sites with EV certificates, and we're going to look at how many of them are actually phishing sites, and therefore that is going to indicate that if you have an EV certificate, you won't have phishing on your site. But the problem that it entirely misses is that phishing doesn't happen on the primary site. Phishing happens on sites which look like the primary site, and then they go and get a DV certificate, so they still get the padlock. It used to say secure in Chrome, and based on the current Chrome Canary, very, very soon the EV is not even going to show what, the whole sort of organizational name.
Without a click,
without drilling down the certificate, which no one does unless you're us, and we're not really the target demographic for phishing anyway. So basically it's saying the sites which weren't going to actually have phishing attacks on them anyway don't, And it doesn't address the fact that all the other sites that are phishing sites, and they've just got small variations of domain names or something, do have phishing on them. Yep. So to come up and sort of say all of these EV domain sites are like 99.99% free of online crime, which does make me wonder about that 0.01%. But anyway, that's another story. Has got nothing to do with the fact that you can still go and create another site that's a phishing site with a DB certificate.
And this is like the core. This is the crux of it, right? Like, this is the core of the argument. They're saying, like, yes, there's two separate arguments here. They're like, yes, like EV is free of phishing, and if you've got an EV certificate, it means you're not a phishing site and everything else. And it's like, right, but why do we keep talking about phishing? It's because phishing is a really big problem in our industry. And what we're saying is, it's like, phishing is a really, really big problem, and people get burnt by it day in, day out, and there's absolutely no phishing on EV, but phishing is still a really big problem, which is why we're talking about it. So clearly EV doesn't matter any. It's like we're actually missing the point that.
It just incidentally, when you get so angry about this and you bang the table, the camera goes like that.
I'm just so mad. It's just like.
All right. So let's continue. So in this paper, and this is just going through your tweet thread. So Sectigo, don't get angry with me. You've highlighted this bit. This research, which was made possible by a financial contribution from Sectigo, concluded that 99.99% of domains, etc. How impartial is a study when it has a financial contribution from the organisation that has a vested interest in the outcome being one particular direction? Hypothetically.
Like, this is shrug emoji. Like, I would never come in and say, like, these researchers took the money to go and make the results or anything like that. I just think that this was probably a result of a limited scope of the research. It's like, go look at EV domains and see what percentage of them are bad. I'm like, well, of course it's going to be a tiny percentage, because a tiny percentage of all websites on the internet are bad. So by definition and by extension of that, like, you see what I mean? It's like it's just a tiny percentage of everything is bad.
It's almost like the law of averages. Now, you've gone on and said, you've got a couple of images, I'm going to read them. 100% depends on the user. Also advises users should trust sites with EV. You should read the EV SSL guidelines. Now, the bit you've highlighted here is blah, 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 blah. Therefore, users benefit by noticing and using the browser security indicators as a guide to trust domains with EV SSL certificates. So they're basically saying users actually notice EV and change behavior based and like, let's be clear on this. It's not changing behavior based on the presence of EV, it's based on the absence of EV on a place where they should expect EV.
Well, so like, there's the two angles of it, and that is one of them, which is I go to a website that normally has EV and now it doesn't, therefore I should change. But there's also the flip side of this, which I think they were trying to get at in the research, which was I'm going to some, like, I just Googled, I want to buy a remote controlled car for my kid, and I ended up on this website. Is it some dodgy website that's just going to steal my credit card information? Oh, they've got EV. I can trust them. So there's like this separate establishing trust in the unknown element as well.
But the irony of all this is the constant deprecation of EV visual indicators on clients anyway.
Yes.
Because there are no EV visual indicators on Chrome on mobile. Yep. There is now no longer an EV visual indicator on Safari on iOS as of iOS 11. And assuming, again, and we only touched on this, so let's drill into it, is it Chrome 77 Canary at the moment has EV indicators removed?
I think it was 77 from memory, yeah.
Which is next month.
Very soon. Because it is. We're August now.
And remember when we were doing NDC security on the Gold Coast last year, there were people in my workshop that had it removed as part of an experiment. So, like, if you're Sectigo, for argument's sake, and you're like, oh, this is surprising. It's like, no, it's not. Like, we've known about this for a long time. Now, you then also link to the excluded purposes for EV certificates, which is what in the baseline requirements?
Yep.
And you've got, for those of you that want to look it up, 2.1.3.3, it says here, one of the excluded purposes for EV is that the subject name in the EV certificate is trustworthy, honest or reputable in its business dealings. So basically, like and I'll get you to explain the baselines in a moment, but the whole sort of governing guidance behind EV says that the presence of it doesn't mean you can trust the site. So can you explain the baselines very briefly?
So
because you got a lot more tweets here.
We have the CAB forum, so that's the CA browser forum, so the Certificate Authority browser forum. So certificate authorities and browsers come together in the forum, and the output of that is a document called the Baseline Requirements, which is quite literally the rule book by which certificates exist. And the baseline requirements, as you've just read out, quite clearly states that having an EV certificate does not mean that you're trustworthy. And this is the massive overstatement that kind of bugs me in the purpose of EV certs, that there is one thing that an EV certificate does, and it is bind a domain name to a legally registered company name.
Which may or may not be the company you think it is.
And yes, and this is, so immediately we diverge away from the human understanding of like, hey, I've just gone to this website, and you know, I mean, how many times have you seen franchise websites? We have loads in the UK where it's like O2 is a very big brand in the UK, but they're owned by an EU company called Telefonica. And people are like, well, who the hell is Telefonica? Like, I don't know, I don't care, but that's what it says in their EV certificate. So yeah, like you can immediately just start going off on crazy tangents where.
So I'm reading through the I don't understand what you're upset about here. So you've gone, so your tweet is what? And you've highlighted this. What was your problem with this? So I'm going to read this out while Scott reads it in his head. The 3 standard levels of SSL certificate are 1. Domain validation, DV. DV certificates provide the lowest assurance for clients. Registration is automated and simply checks that the domain name is registered. Confirmation is done via email response and by setting up a DNS record for the requested website. The processing time is very fast and only takes a few minutes to a few hours. What don't you like about that? Seriously.
Why is the... So basically, they've just explained what a DV certificate is, and it's like, okay, great,
right?
But if you like, as we continue on through that paragraph, what they're saying is because the issuance process for most DV certificates nowadays is automated, there's no human intervention, which means a human can't spot someone trying to do something bad and stop the issuance process. So that's the kind of the thread in that paragraph. But they're constantly picking at the automated nature of certificate issuance to say if there's no human intervention, then sorry, I'm just like, you can't make me mad and then complain that I bang on the table, right? This is like, it's just, the complaint is we can't have automated stuff basically because there's no person in there to spot bad things happening and stop the process, and that's just crazy. Like, how are we going to encrypt the internet if we don't automate stuff?
So you do go on, if I'm honest. So one of the points here, security indicators are commonly seen in major browsers display as locks, shields, or other symbols. Researchers have shown that unfortunately browser users do not always understand or notice them, and our future work with focus on these issues. And our future work with focus, is that a typo?
There's about 5 that I put in the paper.
Really?
I'm not going to drill into that part of it. It's a bit rough cut, I feel.
But it was done by a university.
Me?
No,
Trigger emoji.
All right, I'm going to read the full sentence. You people decide if this actually makes any sense or not. Researchers have shown that, unfortunately, browser users do not always understand or notice them, and our future work with focus on these issues.
I think you meant to say will focus on these issues.
All right. I'll tell you what, it should just be us that drink the beer when we do this, not the people who are writing the stories. So that was a very, very strange one. Now you basically end this with the dog drinking the coffee and the house is on fire, so this is fine. Now that would have been fine until someone from Sectigo.
Oh, this is funny.
Now look, we won't name the guy because for all we know, he's a very decent guy and he was just drunk or something like that. We're making it worse, aren't we?
It's like,
no,
I'm going to call it a digger so you can make the hole bigger faster.
It's a dude. It's not me engaging publicly with the person.
Oh, boy.
And look, no, in fairness, it could be a very decent guy, different viewpoint. I think the thing is that what people will always fall back to is that when you work for a company and you are a representative of them and their ideals and the product they're selling, it's going to be hard to be seen to be neutral.
Independent? Yeah.
So, and look, I'll link through to the thread. It's on the public timeline. So David says, it's ironic when internet authorities criticise new research without having examined or considered its validity, the same sin they accuse of their attackers they themselves commit to distrust without evaluation or examination. And he did actually mention you, Scott Helm. Now, it sort of descends into, well, he literally copied and pasted all of your tweets, like in text. Wow.
Yep.
But
it was kind of weird, right? Because I got criticised for not reading the paper and understanding it, and then he's like, here are the 25 tweets that you sent about it. I'm like, well, like, dude, we can't have both of these at the same time, right? Like, I either, like, I don't know.
Well, I see literally quoted all this out. Okay, now I think you've made a fair point, because these arguments do tend to descend into people getting uppity with each other, a little bit of slanderous behaviour, etc. Now, I do agree with the comment here. You said, I'm really not sure on the point you're trying to make. Do you disagree with something I've said? And I think it's really important when you're having these arguments on Twitter. Rather than say, you're a dick or whatever else it may be, I'd much rather have someone say, this is the point I don't agree with, and I'd much rather them do it politely rather than aggressively.
For sure.
We're going to meet a gazillion people the next week, and if history holds true, none of them are going to behave in the way that a lot of people on Twitter tend to when they disagree with something. And it's like something we probably both teach our kids. It's like, don't sort of say something to people that you wouldn't say to them in person. Try and be nice. So David says, I disagree that the numbers were collected in a favourable manner, that Mello's new house. What has Mello's... Okay, explain who Mello is, what his new house is, and what the relevancy is here. Because somehow Mello's house ended up...
So I don't know how this came into the thread, but Melai is... he was the ex-CEO of Komodo and then Komodo CA, but from memory, I don't believe he moved to Sectigo, so I think there was like a division point there when he just happened to leave the company. Now...
So he's got the tweet here. Interestingly, he didn't link to the tweet, he screen grabbed.
Jet lag. Oh, you're not jet lag, you drove.
Oh, no, what a couple of weeks. So we got a bit here about no wonder people keep pushing EV search so hard. And then you link to a story here, which is about Komodo Castle, what am I doing? Cybersecurity CEO behind Montclair Mega Mansion. So apparently Melai, he was the founder of Komodo, wasn't he? He was the CEO.
I know he was the CEO when
apparently he's worth $1.8 billion. Now, I didn't know that. So, I mean, all right, due credit to the guy. Like, if you make $1.8 billion in this industry, you must be doing something that people genuinely want. So, good on you for that. Now, you were, in fairness, a little bit snarky.
Yes.
To say...
But that's also why I intentionally broke it out of the thread and sent it as a separate tweet. And also, if you look at the timing, there was a time difference there as well. This was just me having like a little bit of a funny, snarky tweet. However, it's been sucked into this thread, for which it was completely unrelated and also time differenced. So I kind of feel like that was a bit shady because this was
it was a separate thread.
Yeah, it was a completely different thing, and it was me just being a little bit snarky. But you know what, like,
but it gets picked up and it gets like the thing expands. David says, users should distrust everything on the internet, always. But if they have to trust something, right now the research shows that EV is a great bet. But this is bullshit. Sorry, he didn't say that, that was me. But the reasons why EV is a great bet were not explored. The number of times I've done talks, and I mean, you've been in many of these talks, and I'll do the EV talk, and I'll say, and this will be an audience full of technical people, hundreds and hundreds of technical people. And then who knows what EV is? And there's like 5 people who put their hand up, and it's crazy.
But then most of them know what the indicator is, but couldn't actually delve into what EV is.
No, but even then, it's like, you know what it is, but you don't know which sites are meant to have it, so you wouldn't change your behavior if the site didn't have it, so ergo the thing doesn't work. And by the way, Chrome's about to kill it anyway, so why are we even bothering? You say, so EV is a great bet because it's expensive, so attackers don't bother. It's pointless, so attackers don't bother. It's hard work, so attackers don't bother. Yet attacks are still successful. Now you've got an asterisk here. Hypothetical, but we don't. The reasons why. Have you got a type?
Angry tweet. That's an angry
tweet. Were you slamming your fist on the table as you wrote it?
You make it sound so much worse.
These are my informed guesses.
So this is one of the common things that I come back against, and in my many apparently diverse arguments against EV on Twitter, is that people are like, yes, but EV certificates are really expensive, so they puts the bad guys off getting them. So what that means is if a website has EV, you can be more confident that it's a good person because they spent the money and the time. And I'm like, I can see the point. Like, I get the angle they're trying to put on that, but I'm like, if what we're saying is we're just going to make certificates more expensive and more difficult to get in order to deter bad actors, then like, that's not the value of EV, is it? That's just making things hard. So
I'm conscious we've been rambling on this for a little bit, so I'm going to try and kind of wrap it up a little bit. The discussion does sort of end up around this discussion of, don't you think it's important to be able to establish the legal entity behind a website, basically, i.e. figure out if it's legitimate or not. And I think we both agree that there's value in that. But EV and its dependency on browser indicators, which are largely being killed off anyways, is kind of, the manifestation of that doesn't have any practical value. And no one really has a better model at the moment, do they?
And I'm not also sure that I agree that legally registered company names are the right way to go, because you and I don't interact with like Alphabet LLC or whatever Google's called nowadays. Like, you know, there's this huge void between the brand that people interact with and legally registered entities, and that could change based on whichever country you're in. So I'm not sure that a legally registered entity is any good. You only have it for like that 1 second that you're on a page and it's in the browser, and then after that it's gone. You can never like go back to that and say, hey, what was the legally registered entity name for that website I went to yesterday? It's gone. So
there's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't quite
I do value, and like this is to try and balance the argument, because I'm always like flamed as anti-EV on Twitter, and I'm not. I'm anti-bad mechanism. I appreciate the value of identity online. If a browser could tell me, like, if I try and go to a website and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I want to go to Netflix, right? Everyone can probably agree what Netflix is, the online movie streaming company. If there was some way for the browser to know my intent as a person to go to the correct Netflix, like, I would totally be for that, but
relying on humans to
doesn't
make
work.
relying on humans to make a judgment decision based on the absence of a visual indicator.
That's
really
just not working.
Right.
And the registered company name and all the other stuff.
I'll link through to the thread, and then people can have a read of it and determine for themselves.
I'm going to be sat in a pub later, like tweeting people.
No, but it is an interesting thread, and in fairness, David was polite about the discussion.
Yeah,
you guys had different views on it
because like people came back and like, oh my god, you've been arguing for ages, and I'm like, yeah, but this is actually like I'm perfectly like I'm not angry. Yeah. I hope he's not angry, and we're just sparring intellectually. Like I like that.
Excellent. Okay. Wrapping up, my sponsor this week is StrongDM. They got a piece here about why Splunk CISO says StrongDM enables you to see what happens, replay and analyze incidents. You can't get that anywhere else. So big thanks to StrongDM for their sponsorship this week. You're going to see StrongDM around for a little bit more just yet as well. So I appreciate that. I'm sure they are probably one of the many, many brands that we're going to see over the coming week. So let's come back and do this again on the coming Friday.
We should do it at DEF CON maybe or something.
Maybe if we can find a place.
A cool backdrop would be nice.
Yeah, maybe we'll try and do that. We'll see. But at the very least, it will be here is the things that we've learned about DEF CON, and it will be my first time. And
I can't believe you're a DEF CON noob. That's so interesting.
I know. You know what it is? It's like every time it's come up, I've just had so much stuff on, and if it wasn't for all the projects have I been paying stuff in San Fran the last 2 weeks, it probably wouldn't have happened this year as well. But hey, maybe I'll be a convert after this year and I'll do a lot more of it. Thank you very much for watching this sort of somewhat tired update from
whatever
Vegas.
this was.
We should go and get some dinner. Thanks, guys. See you later.